T-minus 50 seconds. T-minus 40 seconds. T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.
Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Good afternoon. Happy Black History Month. I hope everybody is doing good. It's your girl, Mika. I'm here, as promised, to do Big Swole's top 5 memorable moments. Now, I am not going to call them the top 5 moments for her, because I feel like after what just happened with AEW that she's going to get into a new kind of era of herself and reinvent herself, and we're going to get some more really wonderful moments. So we're just going to call this the top 5 most memorable moments up until this point, right? So again, thank you for joining us here on Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Again, if y'all are ready, I'm ready. So let's get into it and talk about our girl, Ariel Monroe, aka Big Swole. So for moment number 5, we're going to go to one that a lot of people kind of forget. It was very brief, but still pivotal. And that was her WWE debut, which was 8/1/16, so that's August 1st. And that was on an episode of Raw. And who did she fight? None other than the artist and wrestler formerly known as Nia Jax. So, like I said, this match was very, very short. It was only about 2 minutes in length. But even still, it was important for Swole because this is the first time that people were seeing her on TV. They did not refer to her by name, so she was not referred to as either Ariel or Big Swole at that time. They kind of just called her a local competitor. Like they just went and grabbed somebody off the street and was like, hey girl, come on here and wrestle. But she got in the ring, she showed up, she fought Nia Jax, and it sparked the curiosity for a lot of people into who she was and what she was doing. And it definitely upped her following in the indies. Even though she was already, active at that point. But we're going to give that moment the number 5 spot. Anything with Nia Jax, usually is pretty memorable, but this was one that was short but sweet for her. So moving on, we're going to go into number 4. And this is where her Big Swole and Aja Pereira were named the Shine Tag Team Champions when they defeated Gabby Gilbert and Luscious Latasha in September of 2019. As you can see by the picture, they look great. Titles look great on them. This moment was pivotal for a few reasons. Of course, Ayala Fox was involved as their manager at that point and would wrestle sometimes. But because of their win that they got at Shine 60, that's what gave them the ability to go against the two for the tag team champions. Now, it was a New York City street fight. It was no disqualification and no count out. So they had to show up and show out, and they did. And they were the first African-American duo to hold those tag team titles. So, of course, in Black History Month, That's super important. And shout out to them for being able to be the two. And again, if you look at them, I'm putting them up again. They look great with the titles. They look like they belong there. And they actually had a really great reign. So for these two to be able to be, the tag team champions and the only two African American females to be tag team champions, that was iconic. So that moment is a solid number 4 for her. Definitely unforgettable. Moving along to a little bit more of a recent moment. And before I get into number 3, I'm just going to shout out the people I see in the comments. Hello, my senior writer and host, Nikki. Writer Sammy in here. My good friend Gerard, he's amazing. Follow him on all platforms if you haven't. He's great. Southern Honor Wrestling is coming up fast. Commentator Team of the Year. Wonderful podcast. So follow them. And of course, my editor-in-chief and my security blanket, Santana, is here with me. And I think my husband is watching too. He just hasn't said anything. So shout out to you, babe. But let's get back into the beauty that is Big Swole for Black History Month. So number 3 moment is going to be an AEW moment. Now, we do know AEW is a very controversial topic for Big Swole right now. If you are a fan of Big Swole and are not aware of what's actually going on, just keep her in your prayers, keep her family in your prayers, positive energy, crystals, whatever you believe in, whatever you do. It was a very rough time for her after the comments that were made online, especially with the threatening of her family, her children, things like that. So just be mindful of your fandom and that these people are human. And I did want to say that. But back to this number 3 moment. This is going to be that good old tooth and nail cinematic match from AEW All Out. And this was in September of 2020. Y'all, look at this photo. Look at this. If you cannot tell me that these two women did not handle their business with this cinematic match, okay? This is one of my favorite photos from the match. There were a lot of photos from the match, and it was really hard to pick which one I wanted to put in the article and use for the top 5. But that one to me just shows how crazy this match was. It was a Falls Count Anywhere match. And it was regulated by rules that could change at any moment. So it was not just a regular, get in the ring and wrestle match. Well, clearly it wasn't because it was cinematic. And it was shot at the at Britt's dentistry office, her actual office in Pittsburgh. But it was chaos. There was so many different weapons used, so many different items used. The poor dentist chair that the patient sits in was just, it was a star of the match as well. But Swole was actually able to pull out the win this time. And it was an interesting way that she decided to win. She actually used the nitrous oxide against Britt and caused the knockout. So that caused her to win that match. And this match actually was the beginning of when we started to see Britt turn heel. So it was really essential for Swole to win that match to kind of launch Britt into this heel character that we now know and love. We thank Big Swole for that. Black women, we are the standard. We are the pinnacle. We can start these types of things. And she did just that with this match. And it also allowed Swole to show that she's a vet, right? So it allowed Swole to display her talent. It allowed Swole to display her prowess and her ability to control a match and to make a match show up, and look good. And she did that. Of course, with Britt's assistance, because, we all know Britt has grown a lot since this match, but she showed up as well. And it just really leveled both of these women up, not only in AEW, but in wrestling, period. Yes, Gerard, it was pure chaos. Like, there was so much going on. The referee was trying to keep up. Like, it was just, it was something that we had never seen before. We've seen a lot of cinematic matches, but for Britt to be a dentist, this be in her dentist office, they use all of these different tools. It just was a different type of art. And I really did appreciate that and what they brought to that particular show. And it definitely left an impact on a lot of people for who Big Swole was. So definitely a good number 3 moment for her, to help cement her as somebody that was important to the AEW women's roster at the time. So we're flying through these today, but that's okay. We don't have to be here long. We got number 2. Now, number 2 is interesting because this is a memorable moment, but it technically is still going on, right? So this is the moment when she won the Rise title, the Rise Phoenix title, my apologies, and defeated Zoe Lucas back in August of 2019. So listen, this particular feud had been going on for a while, especially for this title. Swole had been going back and forth, trying to get her title shots, trying to prove that she, was ready. But Rise started in 2016, and Swole had been there pretty much since the beginning. But this Swole feud with Zoe, like I was trying to say before my words got minced a little, had been going on for a while. So she was able to finally beat her for the championship title. And the crazy thing about this is that this happened in August of 2019, and Big Swole is currently still the Rise Phoenix champion. So it has officially been 926 days that she has held this title. Now, of course, COVID has had a lot to do with it. It's a smaller promotion, so when the country shut down and in a reaction to COVID, of course, that stopped a lot of indie wrestling. But either way, she is still currently, to this day, as of February 21st at 3:12 p.m. Central Standard Time, the Rise Phoenix Women's Champion. So we are going on 930 days by the end of this week that she's held this title. So that is absolutely insane. Shout out to her. That's going to be a historical thing for not only their company, but also for Black women and women in wrestling. So she's still continuing to leave her mark anywhere she can. And we are always going to be champions of Swole here at Women's Wrestling Talk. Well, we're only 12 minutes in and we are already at number 1. So before we get to number 1, I just want to talk about a few things that Swole has done recently. I know that yesterday in DC, I think she main evented with Trisha Dora at Grappital. We Trust. I do not think she won. I didn't get to watch it. But Swole is back currently actively wrestling. So please be on the lookout. Follow her on social media, on Twitter and Instagram. She definitely shares her shows. If you call yourself a fan of wrestling or call yourself a fan of women's wrestling, we have to support our own. And so we definitely need to follow her, support her, listen to her on podcasts. I think she was just on 2 or 3 different podcasts that dropped this week. Still talking about Tony Khan, because a lot of people want to know what happened with that situation, but also talking about her future. Support her husband. This is Women's Wrestling Talk, but Cedric Alexander is still wrestling in WWE. That's a check. It's a check for her family. So continue to support her, continue to follow her, speak highly of her, and breathe life into her when you can, if you see her around the socials. Tamara, so glad to see you. I hope you are feeling better, baby. We love you so much. And yes, Nikki, 926 days. 926 days. Longer than any women's champion that I've ever heard of that's held a belt. So that's major for me. And I know that she definitely is grateful for the opportunity to be the champion for that company. So, for anybody that didn't read my article, I wonder if you're wondering what number 1 is. For those that did read the article, you already know. So let's get into it. Our number 1 Big Swole moment is again another AEW match. Now, this particular match has been written about a couple of times with Women's Wrestling Talk, because it left that much of an impact on us. and it's going to be from AEW Dark episode number 107. The Three Strikes match where Big Swole went over Diamante in September of 2021. I'm going to say it. This match deserved to be on television. This was not a match that should have been on YouTube. It was not a match that, should have been brushed to the side. This feud and this match should have made Dynamite, because I don't think there was a Rampage at that point. It should have made Dynamite. It didn't, but it should have, and I'll tell you why. So this match, they called it a Three Strikes match because it was 3 different types of pinfalls that were required, and 2 out of 3 were going to be, if winning 2 out of 3 was going to be how you won the match. So there was one match that was pinfall pinfall was the way to win. The second was submission, and the last was knockout. So you had to have won 2 of the 3, or of course 3 of the 3 if you're, Goldberg or somebody, Brock Lesnar or somebody, in order to get the win, right? So the first fall went to Big Swole. She got that pinfall. She was able to hit a back suplex and a knee strike and get that first pinfall. So at that point, it was 1 for Swole, 0 for Diamante. Diamante was able to come back and get that second by submission. And then that last fall. Here we go. The last fall. This is where it got really crazy. Both women were tired, but they were still fighting their hearts out. By now, it had been a great match. There were a lot of different, I call it finisher mania. Some people call it false finishes. But, different attempts to try to end the match, try to get that victory. And Big Swole was the one to be able to get it using a chain and getting that knockout over Diamante. And it really cemented Swole's position in AEW as a force to be reckoned with, as somebody who was a veteran that knew the ring, that knew the ins and outs of wrestling and the ways to get ahead and how to get a victory, even a hard fought victory. And we're going to shout out Diamante as well, because she did everything she could, to win the match. And she had a great showing as well, but it just was not enough to beat Swole. Not that night. So for me, even though this match was on AEW Dark and it should have been on television, this was one of the most talked about matches of the week across all wrestling platforms, because people had gone back to watch it. People were tweeting about it. They were, talking about it and causing people to then go back and watch it. And it left such a mark on women's wrestling, especially for AEW. It was still kind of early for AEW. They haven't been around very long. So for that type of match to have gone that well, so many people were so excited about it. And I was just so glad that Swole was able to be a part of that, just like with the cinematic match for AEW. Swole's time at AEW, while it was short, she was very influential in helping to shape the women's division, helping to grow a lot of the women that were wrestling in that division as a veteran, being somebody that they can come to and trust and talk to and work with safely. And this match just proves that. The comments that were made about her were unfortunate after her departure, but I don't think that they did enough to tarnish the work and the legacy that Swole put in while she was All Elite. And so that's why it's number 1. There has not been a match quite like this one since. And I don't know if there will be, but if there is, they're going to have big shoes to fill with these 2 women performing the way that they did. It was just absolutely wonderful. So that's why it deserves that number 1 spot to me. I mean, come on. She looked great. This is the end of the match. She looked great. You see the chains laying there. The referee looks like he's about to fall over. Everybody's tired. But Swole just looks so dominant and so powerful. And that's why it's number 1. It's number 1, and it's number 1 for now, because like I said, Swole has a lot left in the tank. She has a lot more to give. Keep your eyes open. Watch out for her, because she's definitely going to still be making waves until she can't make waves anymore. If you don't follow her on Twitter, she's hilarious on Twitter. She's one of my favorite Twitter accounts to follow. So if you don't follow her, go check her out. But yeah, there's so much more greatness left, and 2022 is early. It's getting off to a quick start for her, and we're gonna see what comes down the pipeline. I'll be watching. I hope you guys are watching. And you can always hit me up on any of my socials if you want to talk all things Big Swole, all things Bianca Belair, all things women's wrestling, all things Black wrestling, all things anything. You can feel free to hit me up. Exactly, Tamara. Representation definitely matters, and Swole has been somebody that's always been a driving force for representation, for showcasing Black women and our talents on the wrestling scene. She's always been a champion for that, and for that we will forever be grateful, and I don't think she will stop anytime soon, using her voice and her platform to make sure that we're respected and that women are respected on the wrestling scene. And that's, like I said, something that we can never thank her enough for. So today was short, only about 20 minutes, but again, that's because Swole is still coming. She's still coming. There will be more moments from her for sure. I cannot wait to do a part 2 to this, to update y'all with some more wonderful Big Swole moments. But until then, I'm Jamekia Goodman, Meek the Mage, Mika Billy, host and writer here at Women's Wrestling Talk. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, because I did just recently change them to match, at Meek the Mage. If you come disrespectfully to my page, I hate that for you, because you get the energy back that you give me. So I hope you all have the day you deserve. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and join us next time for our next show tonight, which is going to be our Raw post show with none other than senior writer and host Nikki Bougie, and a undisclosed new co-host. I still don't know who it's going to be, so you got to tune in to find out. But until tonight, don't forget about us. We are the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. I'm now a part of the #1 faction in the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. And I hope you guys enjoyed this, and we will see y'all soon. Back again.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.